I want to write something fun and amazing, but I don't think I'm ready yet. It's not that I don't think that I can become capable of doing it right. I just don't think that I can right now. I just I've watched a few movies this week too, and Love and Monsters was a pretty good movie. Free on YouTube right now, and I gotta say, I think it was an A tier movie, at least. And another A tier movie is The Maze Runner. I feel like The Maze Runner is more popular than I realize. I know it seems like it's had two film sequels, but there's like a whole book series. I think I've probably confused like Maze. Isn't there? I think sometimes I've heard. I don't know. There's different things that are kind of like the Maze Runner, I think, but I've probably heard the name of the franchise a lot more than I've realized. It's probably pretty popular. Um, I thought it was a really good movie though, but I'm almost confused why there are sequels because I thought it ended really good. Like I don't think I want to watch the next few movies because I don't think that they're really necessary. I don't really know what you could do to make it more interesting than it already was. Um, Love and Monsters was really good. It felt like the whole point of the movie was basically saying like it was basically like a love letter to being alive and to loving other people despite all the bad things that happen in life. Um, I thought it was kind of interesting how um, so in the film, what's his name? I forget what the guy's name is in Love and Monsters. But the main character, um, it's an apocalyptic world, so he goes out and he meets this girl and this older guy, and you almost think at the beginning once they split up that they're going to have some sort of dramatic um, reunion where like one of the parties saves the others from a monster in the last moment. Because they had a sad a sad goodbye, but that's actually not what happened, and I really prefer that because like I kind of suspect I wasn't sure, but I was thinking to myself that it would be better if they didn't meet again, and they did not. But it seemed uh, like the movie hinted at that they were going to meet later on again, um, but we didn't actually see it happen in the movie, and I really prefer that because it made the story something else than just simply what you would have expected it to be. Many stories have this thing where the main character meets someone and then they leave and then they're like, oh, I actually really love this person, I'm going to stick around them. And maybe there's nothing wrong with that. And I mean, that's kind of what happened. That's alluded to that happening at the end of the story anyway. But what was so interesting to me was that the obvious twist that happened was that the guy. So basically, the story is that he's in this bunker after the apocalypse that created all these monsters, and his girlfriend from 7 years ago is in some other bunker, um, 85 miles away. So he's never been outside in all that time he's been in this bunker. But he decides to finally go up and go see her. Um, and so he does this, and everybody thinks he's gonna die because he's so scared all the time and everything. And he goes and like you realize it's pretty easy to see like, oh, this isn't going to go the way he thinks it's going to go because he thinks that they're going to reunite and they're going to be in love and everything's going to be great. but it's really obvious that's not what's going to happen. But it wasn't like it was a total disaster either. He just met her, and she said that it had been 7 years since they had been boyfriend and girlfriend, and that in the last year she had known somebody, and that person had died, and she basically wasn't ready for any sort of relationship with him again. So she basically turns him down, but they still have like this positive rapport. So it wasn't kind of quite what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be that um, he would get there and it would turn out that she had a boyfriend, and it almost looked like that's what was going to happen. But that's not what happened. And I definitely am glad that the movie went the way it did, because they were basically just like, there was definitely, they kissed at the end, so I guess it was like a romance thing still. But it wasn't like defined. So you didn't necessarily know how things were eventually going to go. And the movie placed the value of the friendship love that they had for each other over any sort of just passionate romantic feelings, which I greatly preferred. Because there's so many different ways that this movie could have gone, where it would have been so much more basic and cliche and obvious, but it didn't really do any of that. Even though I think that the movie must have just been very forgettable, and I'm not entirely sure why. I mean, it's a very typical sort of movie. It just doesn't, things don't go exactly how you think that it's going to go. But I'm pretty sure I've seen this movie before, and I just forgot that it existed. But I had probably seen it like 10 years ago or something, so that's probably why I didn't remember. Until near the end, it just seemed like the monster at the end was very familiar, and I'm pretty sure that I have seen the movie before. I just forgot about it. But I really liked it. Like, just like a good movie. Like, there was nothing wrong with it. It wasn't anything absurdly special or anything, but it was a good movie. Like, it just was good. It was quality, and it was just fun, and it had kind of like this inspiring, like message of hope to it at the end, which just was very good. It's basically, it's one of those stories I look at, and I think that is what a story should be like. That is what it should do for you when you watch it. And now talking about Maze Runner. I think it's kind of weird how the film is called The Maze Runner instead of just Maze Runner, because if I was naming it, I would have just named it Maze Runner. But I guess it's based off of the books, and they were thinking about sequels and everything. But I think it should have just been Maze Runner and not The Maze Runner, because that just sounds weird. Honestly, very, very entertaining, like very weird, and there's a lot of like questioning the logistics of everything, and just the logic, like the reasoning behind why everything in the movie happens. I won't get too much into detail because a lot of the fun in the movie is trying to figure out what's going on. But it was it was a good movie, I think. It was mysterious. Before I forget, there's another movie I want to talk about that hopefully I'll remember after mentioning it, which was called Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. Hopefully I'll remember that after talking about Maze Runner. But Maze Runner was one of those movies that makes me want to write a story, because it was just so, like, it evoked the feelings of mystery and heroism and fate and destiny and things like that, and it was just very cool and fun, and tragic and things like that. Like, it had all this stuff in it that just, something that confused me which probably would make more sense in the book series or in subsequent films. I'll at least spoil that. So the characters they're in this maze, and once a month somebody else pops up into the maze and is added to the group. And for some reason, every single person that was in this maze was a boy, except for the last person, which is a girl. And I thought that there would be some sort of significance to that, but there just didn't seem to be any. For some reason, it was just a bunch of boys for some reason. Like there was no girls except for the last person. And the only reason I can think of is that the designers of this maze, they must have been thinking like, we don't want anybody to get pregnant while they're in the maze. But you would think, like the reasons that you find out for why they're in the maze later on, you would think that there would be some girls in there too. But there just isn't. There's 0 girls except for the last person. And you're like, why is that? Like, and it's never addressed, and you think that there's some special reason for it because the characters are like, they kind of like are like, huh, this is weird, there's a girl. But like there's never anything special that like happens. Like there's not even any romance with the main character, which is what you thought was going to happen, which I prefer not having happened because it just would have been so predictable. But it probably happens in like later films. But it was just actually there was it was kind of hinted at that they kind of maybe liked each other. But anyway, it was so weird. It's like, but logistically it was probably like the designers of the maze didn't want anybody to get pregnant while they were in the maze. But you would think then that there would be another maze for girls that they would all be in. Because that's kind of what I thought. I thought that like there had to be a group of girls somewhere. But no, it just seems like for whatever reason they only had boys in this maze until they put this girl in. And it kind of makes sense. Like you find a few things out later on in the story where it seems like the designers of the maze kind of like changed up what they were doing a little bit. So it kind of makes sense that they would put her in eventually there. But at the same time, it's like, why didn't they have any girls in there in the first place? I don't know, it's just weird. And I guess I don't have much more to say about Maze Runner because I thought it was just a really cool mystery story. I found a lot of the action really hard to watch because everything is just like blurry and stuff like that. And I wish that the maze itself had been a bit more interesting because it really wasn't very interesting. Like the mystery was more fun than the reality. Which I suppose maybe is always going to happen. But it was just a bit of a letdown. And yeah, I guess that's it. I don't have much to say about Maze Runner except that it's the sort of story that makes me want to write my own stories, which I think is really cool. And the last thing I want to talk about, I'm not sure what day I watched this. It's Sunday right now. Maybe I watched this on Friday or something. I think I did. The movie Seeking a Friend for the End of the World, which is a really weird movie because the two main characters are acted by Steve Carell, or Carroll, I think it's Carell, and Keira Knightley, which is the weirdest combo of actors I can possibly think of. The first thing I have to say about this movie is that I don't like the title, and I think that it's probably part of why I've never heard of this movie before, because it wasn't even a bad movie. The title of the movie, Seeking a Friend for the End of the World, the first thing is that is way too long of a title. They could have done A Friend for the End of the World, or even something as stupid as like A Friend for the End, or something like that, right? And it would have been way better. it's just such a long title. But the second part is it doesn't even really make sense. Well, I mean, it kind of makes sense. I was gonna say that the seeking part, the seeking a friend for the end of the world, doesn't really make sense. And I mean, it doesn't, because part of the plot is that they're going. Like one of the characters wants to go to their family, the other character wants to meet. The Steve Carell character wants to meet this girl that he knew back in high school who he was in love with. So they're not really seeking anybody. They're just going to where those people are, or they're trying to for a lot of the film. But obviously, like the whole plot basically is that Steve Carell and Keira Knightley's characters, they become really good friends because of these circumstances. Like they were neighbors at the start of this Armageddon scenario. So this Armageddon scenario makes them friends when they basically were never associated with each other despite living right next to each other. And it just, the title annoys me because I feel like it's too much of a mouthful and it didn't fully make sense. So A Friend for the End of the World would have just been a better title instead of Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. Now, the thing is, the fact that it's Steve Carell, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, and Keira Knightley working together, like being co-stars on here, is so weird to me. Even in the film, I believe there's like a 20-year age gap between the actor and actress. I'm not sure what it would have been in real life, but Steve definitely, I thought he was like probably like approaching 50 or something. Keira Knightley's probably like what, like 25 or like 28 or something now. I honestly don't know. But in the movie she was probably a bit younger because I don't know when it came out. But the age gap was really like and like they're such a different they usually are in such different types of films. Like Steve is usually in comedies, and like Keira Knightley, like I just know her from Pride and Prejudice and the Pirates of the Caribbean, and that's all I know her for. But she's more of like a serious actress, and Steve is more of a humor person. But in this, it was kind of more like a dramatic comedy. So I guess that's kind of why I guess they ended up working together on this. It was so weird though. Like I feel like part of the charm of the movie is that there's like such an odd clash of personality there. But I feel like they could have. I don't know if it's preferable to having an actor and an actress that actually would have had like a lot of chemistry and camaraderie on screen. But I can't lie I can't lie that it was very entertaining, like watching them interact sometimes, because it was so odd. It was just so odd to see both of them working together. Like, I don't know if they've ever done that before, and maybe I'm just crazy and thinking that this is so weird, but I found it, I thought it was very odd, because I don't think I ever would have pictured Steve and Keira working on a film together. Like, it's just not something that that enters your head. That's like, I don't even know like who I would compare that to. It's just so odd. But part of the charm of the movie is definitely that like their personalities have like this weird clash with each other, because it's like, think of like the person that you know some random person you know in the world who you have absolutely like no interaction with, but you know this person, like maybe you see them at the gas station, or they're a coworker you never talk to, and then imagine that you got put in an end of the world scenario with that person and you were like went on car trips with them, and that's basically exactly how what kind of vibe this gave off. So in a way, it actually was like really good, because like if they had better chemistry, you would have thought that they would have gotten along before the Armageddon scenario had happened. But now it's like now they're forced to like hang out with each other, even though it's not really forced. Like it just kind of happens just because they're both like, well, the world's about to end in a few weeks. So you want to hang out, and they're like, they just hang out then, and then everything happens. I thought it was weird, personally. Like I didn't see, I saw some of like I didn't quite see the actually I can't remember. Maybe I did. The romance that happened was so odd. Just so unexpected. It was like I don't even I'm at a loss for words like how to explain it. But at the same time, like I don't think I realized it was going to happen. Now, the characters have a bit of an encounter, an engagement in the middle of the movie, and then they kind of shrug it off, if you know what I'm talking about. But like you kind of think that's going to be it. Like you think it's going to be for comedic purposes that happened, and then you think that the movie's just going to keep going, but it doesn't. I mean, it's something that they kind of shrug off, or they try to, but then it ends up that they have this romance that happens, and it's so. I'm not even. It's not actually that. I would have expected to dislike it, but I didn't actually really dislike it just because it was so weird. It was so weird and so interesting to watch when, like, it comes to the point where they're telling each other that they love each other. It was almost satisfying because it was just so weird. Like, but it was kind of like romantic in a way because of their shared experience and their shared doom and their shared destiny. So it wasn't like usually I feel like I would have not. Usually I seem to complain to myself about romance in films like this because I just feel like it's usually very forced and it's some sort of agenda. I honestly feel like it's some kind of psyop. Now I definitely don't like the sex stuff that happens, but the romance was fine, and I don't know. I just didn't hate it. I think that if I had written the movie, I don't think that ever would have happened. But it reminds me a bit of another movie I watched the other week called How Harry Met Sally, which is a rom-com, and I didn't actually realize I don't know. It took me way too long to realize that the movie How Harry Met Sally was a rom-com when I was watching it. I don't know if YouTube always correctly labels things when you're watching them, so that may have been part of the reason. I think it might have just said it was a comedy. But How Harry Met Sally, I have a problem with because, number one, it's one of those worldly movies that is like very much about sex and stuff, and I'm probably not going to watch the movie ever again just because it really wasn't. The message wasn't that good. It's really odd that the movie was a rom-com to me because I don't think it should have been a rom-com. The movie starts out with this guy and this gal. The guy is saying goodbye to his girlfriend, and the gal is a friend of a friend who's going to drive him to New York, and they're both going to New York to live there. So they have this car ride, this like long, like 9-hour trip or something, and they talk and they get to know each other. And at some point, the guy makes a move on the girl, like he says something, and she rejects it, and they get to talking about men and women. and relationships. The guy's being very annoying and he's irritating the girl, but they're still getting along well enough. He's just kind of pestering her. And he's not hiding his attraction to her at all or anything. But it basically, you kind of can get the sense that she's kind of attracted to him by the way that the actress acted, but it's not something you ever think that's gonna like come to anything. Unless if you have more intelligence, like knowledge of what the movie is than I did. Because, I mean, it was a rom-com movie. I just didn't know that watching the movie. So I thought, because at this point in the movie, the characters start talking about whether or not men and women can be friends, or if there will inevitably be some sort of attraction or romance that will happen. And the woman is saying, of course men and women can be friends. And the guy is saying, no, they can't. No, they can't. Men and women can never be friends, right? So you think because the guy is kind of being an irritating perv, that he must be the one that the movie is going to say is wrong at the end here. You think that the guy is eventually basically going to change and realize, oh, men and women can be friends. And by midpoint in the movie, basically, by the middle of the movie, they are friends. Like, they're really good friends. And the thing is their friendship chemistry is so much better than it ever was when the guy was flirting and the girl was kind of attracted but not really into the flirting or anything. Their friendship flirting is, their friendship is so, just the chemistry is so much better when they just get the attraction off the table, or they just set it to the side even though it's there. And they both know it's there, but they set it to the side, and they're just focusing on being friends. It's so much better than any of the sexual or romantic stuff that comes up at any point in the movie, whether it's at the beginning or the end. And so basically my problem with the film How Harry Met Sally is that it seems to the message of the movie seems to be that men and women can't be friends, which I disagree with, and it just seems like a very like just basic, like gross, unproductive message that doesn't further anything for society. It's like, like, because you think that men and women, the idea that men and women can't be friends is a shallow thought, because it is. And the movie seems to almost, it acts like it's going to set out to disprove the idea that men and women can't be friends, but then it doesn't, and it leans in the opposite direction. Like, it goes in the opposite direction. Because at the end of the movie, they have the most stereotypical, the most cliche rom-com ending, where like they're both super into each other at this point, and the guy like confesses his love at the ball or whatever. It's like the most rom-com ending ever to a movie. And it's just like, what did we learn? Nothing. Like, the movie didn't, you thought the movie was going to be something special, something unique, and it wasn't. And I was so disappointed with this movie. I think that because basically the guy does learn to value women as people, but it's not to such an extent, apparently, that he thinks that, like, the opinion, the question of can men and women be friends, the way the film seems to answer it is no, you can't. And I just don't like that. So if I were to think about what kind of ending that I would have preferred for the movie How Harry Met Sally, I think that what I would have done is I would have gone into near the end where they started to have romantic feelings for each other, because throughout the entire movie, there's kind of this undertone of attraction. I think that that's okay. But what I would have done, what I would have taken that, and I would have taken the characters' confusion and them questioning whether or not they should be lovers, basically, and I would have had them just talk about it and be like, look, like they like each other, but they just rather be friends. And then I would have both of the characters meet somebody else that they could be romantic with. Or even just have one of the characters meet somebody else. And then the other character could be left on like a cliffhanger of like, well, I'm sure I'll meet somebody someday. Because I just felt like it would have been a more like progressive message for the film. And it would have been healthier and more beneficial for people to watch that instead of the cheap, like, so-called romance, because their romantic chemistry was so bad. There wasn't even there, but they made such good friends in the movie. I think that sometimes people don't realize just how much movies influence the thinking of society. And if you see people see movies like this, it basically people start to think of reality in the same way that they think of movies. And it basically just puts this message into people's heads. Like, movies are propaganda, really. They give messages to people. They make people think certain ways. And yeah, so that's my opinion of that movie. I think that it should have ended with a good friendship, even if the friendship, like, maybe like a different ending, like the friendship ended horribly because maybe they just couldn't handle like how they felt or something, or one character got with another lover, and maybe their whole friendship fell apart and it had like a bittersweet sort of thing to it. Even that would have been preferable. Like something like some sort of harsh reality ending would have been preferable to the way that movie ended. And I don't like necessarily to have this opinion for at least the reason that people seem to like this movie and the way that it goes, but I just didn't think it was very good. I think I stumbled upon the movie How Harry Met Sally. Either I got it from TikTok, or I think I might have gotten it from TikTok. I think I saw it on TikTok and then I watched it on YouTube, or I looked it up. Or I just stumbled on it on YouTube and watched it. Which, I don't know why I would have clicked on it, except that sometimes I just get certain feelings and I just feel kind of led to watch certain movies over others. So, but it was interesting. There was a book I bought, and like the day after I watched the movie, the book quoted the film itself. I thought it was just really interesting. How like the film sort of entered my consciousness, and like it didn't leave for a good while there, and it still hasn't, I guess, because I'm talking about it. But it wasn't. I don't know. I don't think it was a very good movie. I honestly think it was not a good movie. It was entertaining, but I don't think it was a good movie. And I just don't think it had a good message or anything. But I guess that's about it. I like talking about movies. I like watching them and just seeing things. It's sort of just just something to pass the time. Just a basic interest. And yeah, that's about it.